My guest today is Sarah Burton, a lead product designer at Dovetail. Dovetail is a customer insights hub that helps companies better understand their customers so they can build better products and services for them. They just launched Dovetail 3.0, which includes a series of AI features that help you analyze and extract insights from customer interviews, surveys, and even App Store reviews. In my conversation with Sarah, we discuss how to balance AI automation and human expertise, the importance of understanding customer problems before jumping too quickly on the AI train, and even some design tactics to help you design for AI's unpredictable nature. Hey Sarah, it's nice to have you here. I just want to start by just asking you to give a brief introduction about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so hey, thank you so much for having me, Fuzzy. It's great to be here. I'm Sarah. I'm a lead product designer at a company called Dovetail. Worked in product design for about 7 years after making a career switch from mechanical engineering, of all things.
I studied industrial engineering, and then I decided to do design instead of traditional engineering.
What I love about design that it does have so many people from different disciplines. I think we're strong
Exactly.
with diversity of thought, and so I think it's a real strength of the discipline.
I totally agree with you. I guess for people who aren't very familiar with Dovetail, can you explain what Dovetail is and maybe frame it in a way that explains what problem Dovetail is trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dovetail's core mission is to increase the quality of everything. And that's underpinned by a foundational belief that great products and services are built by listening to customers. And so we want to make it easier to listen to customers and make customer-centric decisions at your organization. And the core challenge that we see and what we're trying to solve is that it's gotten a lot easier to talk to customers. So there's lots of different tools that allow you to do that. People jump on video calls. You have different kind of unmoderated usability testing tools, different survey tools, different voice of customer feedback channels, even social media sources. There's lots of data, but what we haven't gotten very good at yet is listening to customers and actually actioning that in a sensible way. And we think that's because there's just so much and there's so many different tools that it's really hard to synthesize that into something that's actually actionable. So Dovetail exists as a tool and a platform to help you take in all those different sources of customer data and make sense of it in a way that you can take outputs that directly translate to decisions that help you build better quality products.
You guys had a big launch this week, so Dovetail 3.0, and there was a lot of build-up over the past month that I noticed on like LinkedIn and like your social media. This launch seems very important, so can you tell me a bit more about why it's so important and maybe what major changes you've implemented?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really exciting one to work on and some of the most exciting work of my career and such a testament to the team we have and the energy that we've had over the past few months to build so much in such a short amount of time. But the reason that it's a really exciting launch for us is obviously we want to have this commitment to our customers to continue to innovate to help them make those customer-centric decisions better, faster and more efficiently, with taking into account more data so that we can help them make them more accurately and build better products as a consequence. And one thing that I think the Dovetail 3.0 launch has done really effectively and is kind of a step change for our company is we want to raise the ceiling, lower the floor. And what I mean by that is if you're an expert, you're a UX researcher or you're someone who deals with customer feedback all the time, we want to lift the possibilities of what you're able to do by taking away sort of some of the tasks that take up a lot of your time. They're very time consuming, they're very manual, helping you do that faster so that you can focus on that really high cognitive work that you are an expert in and you're going to make a lot of valuable inputs with. And we also want to lower the floor. So this is, we believe that the realm of customer-centric decisions is everyone's responsibility and everyone's joy to be able to work with. And so we want to make it easier for people to come in and engage with customers and input from customers, no matter what your role, whether you are full-time focused on it, like a UX researcher, or whether it's part of your role, like a designer or a PM, or even if you're in sales or customer success, we want you to be able to come in and make sense of that. And so what we've done with the 3.0 launch is we've launched a suite of products that's going to help you gather more customer data and make sense of it faster and more effectively, no matter what your role. And this looks like we've launched 3 entirely new products. Ask Dovetail, where anyone in the organization can come in the tools where you are, like Slack, and ask questions, and you'll come up with answers that are a summation of all the information that you know about your customers. Recruit, we know that recruiting customers to talk to, or potential customers who aren't customers yet, is one of the biggest friction points in being able to talk to customers. So we want to make that easier to do as well. We have channels, which is our way of analyzing high volume data. So there's continuous sources of data that you get through things like NPS responses or voice of customer that are just coming in, and there's just too much volume for you to be able to manually wade through and make sense of that. We have a tool now to help you make sense of that as well. And then in our core product, we've launched a bunch of new features such as fully automated analysis, survey support, calendar integration, so that you can get more data in and make sense of it faster. And we believe that this is such a step change for our customers, because we're moving from a tool that is primarily built around manual analysis to one where you still have that pathway and that option, but we are taking out a lot of that work so that you can do more of the work that excites you faster and easily, and more if you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're solving a big problem. I've also been doing design for about 7 years, and research is definitely the most important thing to do when you're designing, because you can make so many assumptions in a room with people who just look at the same product all day. But you gain so much insight from talking to people, and one of the biggest barriers is the amount of time that research takes. And there's a lot of instances where you're in a situation where people say, okay, we don't have enough time to do research, so we have to either make a very small study or skip it altogether, or not test it like the way you want it tested. Even when you do have time to test it, I feel like the analysis part kind of kills the momentum a bit, because there's so much like data to go through and like read. Especially if you were already in all the interviews, like you kind of heard what everyone said, but like the manual process of like rewriting or reformatting the information that you already know, that definitely needs some assistance. So I do like the idea of like accelerating that process, so you can keep improving those products.
I think it's like really like that you've hit on such a great point there. It's so time consuming. And then the additional thing that we're trying to solve here is that because it's such an investment, one, we want to like decrease the amount of time required so that you can do more of it and get more value of it. But also currently something that we find a lot is that this work gets done and gets lost. Because someone in one area of the business will run a study, and maybe you get some outputs from it and you'll make some decisions, but without somewhere to go back and be able to easily access that information, you might end up doing the same study again 6 months later in a different team, and it's not a good return on investment. So you need to be able to like make actual proper use of your customer input as well. When you do go out and talk to customers and make the effort, you need to be able to use that and get as much value of that. And that might be, you can make use of it again in 6 months' time, so long as it's accessible to you.
It's like you're building a brain for the company of like customer insights, like one brain, not 10 tiny brains that don't talk to each other. Even from a designer's perspective, when you think of cross-functional teams, everyone's working in different tools. Like designers were working in Figma all day. So sometimes we'll make our presentations in Figma and they'll stay there. But for example, your product managers or other teams like marketing or other stakeholders, they don't have that Figma visibility. If it's not on Confluence or Notion or whatever document or storage solution you're using, like it's just lost. And as you said, it's hard to like retrieve that information and make it evergreen in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And we see, it's something, a part of the Dovetail culture that I really love is that when information becomes accessible in that way, every single role in the organization becomes so much more customer centric and focused. A real strength of the team is, the engineers I'm working with currently are some of the most customer centric engineers I've ever worked with, because they have access to this information. It's something that they can include in their workflows as well, because it's not hard for them to access. They don't have to go through and dig through, piles of files and different tools that they don't normally access. They can have that information accessible to them, which means that the consequences that everyone in the organization becomes more customer centric and is able to bring that voice of customer into the decisions that they're making. Yeah,
you touched on such an important thing. Like, I think it's common to find a design team being very customer centric, but what I've noticed is that anytime you show anyone outside of the design team customer feedback, even an interview, they're so fascinated to just listen to someone using this product that their entire company has been working on for years and years, and it always gives them that perspective shift. So I love how you're making that accessible to different teams.
It's so true. And I think like there's no one who doesn't want to be customer centric. And you see that like and I think having a way to share those insights with people that is engaging, like things like, a clip from a video and you share that out to someone in a different team, you see how engaged people are with that and how
Yeah.
excited they are to hear from customers. And it really resonates really strongly. And so
Yeah.
there's such an appetite for it, I think, to customers. People know the value of it. It's just making it easy to do.
This launch didn't happen overnight. It's probably been a culmination of lots of conversations, lots of work. So I want you to take us back to 2021, end of November. ChatGPT is released.
Yes.
I guess how did Dovetail react internally to that surge in popularity of AI, and how everyone suddenly became obsessed with it?
Yeah, I'll definitely caveat my answer here. I started Dovetail post this time, so I definitely saw the effects, but I've had conversations with people, so I can summarize that as well. But I think one of the strengths of how Dovetail responded to that, I think, is that we weren't too reactive. I think we definitely saw it. There's a combination of excitement and trepidation, like excitement with what's going to be possible with this new tool and trepidation with, we're a qualitative data company. So what does this mean now that we have this like kind of step change and what does that look like for our company? I think one thing about the response that I think was really good is that we kind of sat back a little bit. It was almost a little bit conservative. Like we, as a customer focused company, we want to focus on the customers and their problems. And so we didn't react too quickly to, put GPT in a wrapper and put it in our product. We wanted to figure out how does this technology make sense with the problems that we're already aware of and already trying to solve. And I think after sitting with that and reflecting, doing a lot of research, talking to customers, practicing what we preach, we kind of came to the point where I think the long-term vision of Dovetail has always been a customer insights hub. And what I mean by that is that home for all your customer data that you can then use to make decisions. And this technology really enabled that in a way that became really exciting, and that it didn't really change the overall vision, but it suddenly made it possible in a way it wasn't before. And we kind of had this problem of all this data and we were creating a home for it, but there's still so much data to wade through versus this technology is launched and there's all these options that open up about how you can surface information or search through that data or present it in different ways or synthesize it in different ways that kind of actually unlocked the core vision and the core problem that we wanted to solve all along. And I think that's where I feel very excited about how Dovetail's used AI and how we work with it, is that it's not trying to retrofit it to a problem where it doesn't make sense. It's kind of been an enabler that's enabled us to solve the core problem that we already set out to solve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even I guess you mentioned that you were more patient. Did you still feel like there was some pressure to act quickly just because ChatGPT was launching lots of updates, and as you mentioned, you can use ChatGPT to do analysis and synthesis of information. And so was there still some sort of pressure to maybe move slowly in a cautious way, but still do something?
I mean, definitely. You never want to be, particularly with like a company that's young and innovative, you don't want to sort of sit back and rest and let technology pass you by. But I think this is the beauty of having a company that is sort of founded and led by a designer. I've never worked in one that's founded and led by a designer before, but we have this at the heart of all the problems that we want to solve is problems for customers. So there wasn't really a pressure to bring in this technology in a way that didn't solve problems. When I say we had like a sort of conservative approach, I mean, there was never a push to be like, okay, we just need to get AI in. And however that looks like, just get it in. There was kind of if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. That we didn't really experience that because we wanted to take technology and use it to solve the problems that we were already focused on. So yes, there's definitely, and we're a fast-moving company, and we want to respond quickly to changing market conditions and changing customer problems and landscapes. But we also want to keep the problems at the heart of what we're focusing on rather than the technology. And I think that's what led to we were able to sit back, think about what this meant for us, think about what this unlocked for us, rather than rushing and implementing something that was suboptimal because we weren't focusing on the problems at the heart of it.
The biggest problem I see with AI is people just jumping too quickly on the train and just adding it for the sake of feeling that they're innovating, but then it's just a disaster or doesn't really solve a problem. So I guess like when you were designing these new experiences, do you have any like core principles? I guess you said you focus on the problems, but I guess in terms of integrating AI into those areas that you thought were helpful, did you have any principles or philosophies that you applied as a company to stay true to your mission?
Yeah, I think the main one is human in the loop. And it's really we see this through customer conversations that we're having. You know, I'm talking to customers and they're talking about their fears or excitement around AI. And a quote that's really resonated with me that I use quite a lot now from a customer was, you know, we don't want AI to be the driver of our bus. You know, we want to be the driver of our bus. And so I think that's been the core principle and how we thought about integrating AI into our products is that the person is in control. And we think about AI as kind of like a trusted intern who's come in and is doing a lot of work, but you're the one who's you're going to probably want to check the intern's work. You probably want to make sure that you feel comfortable with it. You're the one who's in control. You're the expert, and the AI is a trusted helper. And so that's kind of our core principle. We're not looking to replace anyone or any role because we know that our customers are going to be the experts in applying that. We want to create tools that help them achieve more. So I think human in the loop is the main philosophy that we want to have at the center of all the work that we do around AI.
I think when you design people out of the process, AI becomes frustrating. I think many people experience this when they try any AI tool and they're like, oh, I can't control the output the way I want, or it's good, but not good enough to use or reuse, or like you still have to do some work. So I do like the approach of human in the loop. And I was digging through your launch documents and the marketing material, and I even listened to the keynote yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
And one of the things that were mentioned that really caught my attention was, I think your CEO mentioned there were 3 levels of automation that people could select or like kind of switch between. So can you elaborate a bit more about that and like how that came to be?
Yeah, this is something I'm really excited about. This is something I worked on, and it's definitely born out of the human in the loop philosophy. And that's a recognition that not every user is going to want to use AI in exactly the same way. And so one thing that when we were introducing it, one thing that we were thinking about a lot is there's no real actions that are, you can't have a manual intervention or it's purely AI and there's no way that you can come in and tweak. They're kind of this double-sided coin where there's an AI automated pathway for someone who is completely happy for that to be automated. But then for people who aren't completely happy for that to be automated, they need to have ways that they can interact with the tool that helps them. So one thing that we thought about a lot with the different modes, so we've got 3 different modes, which is fully automated. And that's for someone who, you know, might want to come in, they bring in their customer data, they've done some calls, they're happy to pull that in, and they're happy for the AI to run end to end. And they just want to know what the takeaways are. And they might not want to go in depth and do it themselves. They might not have time. It might be sort of tangential to their core role, but they still want to be able to get those takeaways and make use of them. And so we want to create a pathway for them where that is fully automated end to end. And then we have another sort of person who might not trust AI to the same extent, or might want to have different interventions, or maybe AI could get them 90% of the way there and they want to get themselves the 10% rest of the way there to make sure that their outputs are exactly what they want. And so here we have the suggest mode, and you still are having that assistance from the AI. It's still generating outcomes for you that you can review, but instead of creating the objects, we create them in kind of this suggested mode where you have a manual review step where, for example, we can find points of interest in your data that are really exciting, but instead of just creating that as a highlight and having that in your system, we can present that to you for a review, and you can look, and maybe you might want to add a couple of different tags. Maybe you want to change the start and end position of that highlight a little bit, or maybe you don't want it. So you are in control to choose which ones you keep and which ones you leave. And then we have the off mode, which is some people don't want AI. And this could be a compliance thing for their company. It could just be a comfort level. Maybe they want to do the manual process and they enjoy that. And so we have pathways for all of these different levels of comfort and time and expertise. And you might not have the expertise to do this yourself. And so we want to provide a pathway for you where you can still get the outputs. But if you are an expert and you want to bring that expertise to make sure that your outputs are exactly what you're happy with, we provide that pathway as well. And I think this is kind of the core to the human in the loop philosophy. Like nothing that we implemented was just an AI pathway. that was just on or off. We have this kind of manual review. Every step of the process is something that people might do themselves. And so it feels very natural to just have some assistance in there and then be able to come in and tweak where you aren't happy or want things to be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can have a one-size-fits-all approach to any sort of automation, like especially on a task level. Like some tasks are like more low risk, so maybe you're more comfortable with like a fully automated approach. But if something is like a higher risk task, then you probably want like the suggest feature maybe off, like you want to do it yourself. For example, like if you want to summarize an interview, maybe you can fully automate that, but extracting like themes or interesting quotes, maybe that's more of a suggest feature, or you want to do it yourself because you remember something specific that caught your attention.
Absolutely. And I think like one thing that I think we should steer away from as designers is kind of these like binary good or bad. And if we have just AI is on or off, then as a user, I'm assessing all of those outputs as a binary. Is it good or is it bad? And it might be 90% of the way there. You might just need to make an adjustment somewhere, or one or two things might not quite be right. You might quickly adjust something related to the prompting so you can get more accurate results. Mm-hmm. But it's 90% of the way there. But if you don't have that control, if it's just good or bad, you look at that and you're like, it's not 100% right, and so it's wrong. And so it becomes something that is a lot less useful to you because you cannot get the benefit, the 90% benefit, because of the 10% where we might have slightly missed the mark for you. And so for a majority of users, potentially the fully automated path is completely fine. But for those users where you want that extra 10%, we just wanted to provide an area where it wasn't a binary, this is right, this is wrong. This might have got me 90% of the way there, and the 10%, that's a huge time saver for me. Mm-hmm. But now I can put the 10% the effort in just refining the results.
You mentioned a few features that Dovetail recently launched. So which ones did you work on, or is there a favorite one that you're really excited about?
Yeah, so I worked on two primary areas, end-to-end automation and survey analysis. And I guess out of those two areas, the feature I'm most excited about is our magic tagging solution. And this was we had a magic highlighting solution already where you could prompt and it would find points of interest in your data automatically for you. And we just extended that to make use of tags that the user might have already put in the system and use those tags to find points of interest relevant to those tags. Because we figured you've already told us what's important to you by setting up those tags. And so we can just use that to find the areas of interest. And I've never worked on a feature where I was more excited to take it away and start using it myself. But it also was really interesting from a design perspective, because when we first started talking about the idea and I raised it with the engineers, they sort of came back to me and they're like, "This is all very well and good, Sarah, but we don't have a lot of context. If you have a single word for a tag, that's not a lot of context for the system to then be able to find what's a good or accurate highlight to match that." And so we had to come up with all these different ways of enabling users to add a bit more context to that tag if they wanted to increase the accuracy of the results. It's something we continue to work on, how to increase the accuracy of the results of those tags. So it's a really interesting design problem, but also just such interesting functionality that I think that one's my favorite.
Yeah, I tested out that feature. Recently I was playing around with Dovetail and I loved the highlighting, but even after, when you, let's say you interview 10 people and you highlighted a bunch of insights in like one, let's say like, customer needs or like wants, and it makes like this highlight video, like this highlight reel in the end of those specific segments. That was my favorite thing, to be honest, because it was just like, how like when you watch sports, you just want to get like the most important moments of what happened in the 2 hours. This is the same thing, but like instead of rewatching 10 hours of customer interviews and clipping specific parts, it just automatically does it based on the content and also the tagging. So that was my favorite feature, to be honest.
Oh, that's exciting. I loved working on it. I think the potential for automation here is just so exciting. Like, as you say, you can upload 10 videos. You can have a tag that's like anything to do with our competitors, or any pain points that the customers are experiencing. I want to know that. Mm-hmm. You can upload your interviews, and then without having to lift a finger, you can go to those tags and have just a highlight reel of any pain points that might have come up in those sessions, or any mentions of your competitors. As you say, it just cuts out so much work to get to the data that you really want to have and share.
And then you can like go to each tag and see all the highlights from all the studies together, which is even more useful.
Exactly.
Something you just mentioned, you said this was an interesting design problem, and I'm very curious to hear how you approach or like discovered those areas that would benefit from some sort of AI assistance. Like, how did you approach it and like find those high value opportunities?
Oh, great question. I think it comes down to a few things. What are the core problems our customers are trying to solve? Every design challenge comes down to that. So understanding what are the biggest goals or pain points your customers are trying to solve, and looking for opportunities where that could apply. And then also looking for things that are currently take a lot of time in the platform as well. I think this is where AI can really help speed things up. And so things like summarizing a transcript, that can take a lot of time. And so that's something that can be like a big save, and is something that it's not necessarily particularly exciting work. So we're not taking away something that people really love to do. And that's where I think like there's a lot of great opportunities, and a lot of people love that because it takes a lot of labor and makes it really short. And I guess the other thing in terms of approaching that, obviously talking to customers and gaining a really deep understanding of what they're trying to do and what their goals are. But as someone who regularly interacts with customer input as well, whether that's interviews or usability tests or unmoderated studies, it's also an opportunity to look at what are the parts of those processes that I find most painful too. Or that my colleagues, because we're building a product that we ourselves use. And so it's something that we obviously talk to customers so much, and that's such a bread and butter for us. But we also use our own product and be like, okay, what steps of this do I find really painful as well as a Dovetail user? And how can I speed that up using AI?
Yeah, I love how you framed it in terms of what do people love to do, and like we don't want to take that away from them. And like what takes time, what do they hate doing, and let's help them in that area. And that reminds me of like this famous, I don't know if it's a tweet or a quote, but it made the rounds online a million times in the past 2 years. But it was, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so I can do writing and art. I don't want AI to do the writing and art so I can do the laundry and dishes. So
Exactly.
what you just said kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, we want to take, I mean, and none of our customers have come to us and be like, oh, we're so upset. We loved summarizing and now you're doing it for us automatically.
Yeah.
No one said that, because that wasn't the part of the process that people loved. People love finding the aha moments and finding customer problems and being able to solve them. They don't love going through and summarizing. So you're absolutely right. It's finding the parts of the process that are tedious that we can then have, our AI intern come in and do those parts of the process for you, so you can focus more on the work that you love.
Did you feel like you had to adopt a different design process? You just mentioned that like when you had some ideas, you were talking to the engineers. So was anything different in how you approached these problems to understand what was possible, what wasn't possible as you were designing?
Really great question. And I think it comes down to, in terms of how I approach design, fundamentally, I don't want to change my process too much regardless of what I'm working with or what the technology is. And I think this is kind of some of the main advice I have for young designers working in the industry. Like, don't learn AI, learn your foundations of design, and then figure out where AI can play in helping solve problems. So fundamentally not an entirely different process. And I think that's part of the culture that we have at Dovetail as well, in that engineers are trusted partners in solving these problems already. And so when we're solving these design problems or coming up with problems that we need to solve for customers and what solutions could look like, we integrate engineering and design as partners in coming up with those ideas. And so it's not fundamentally any different to how we would solve problems outside of AI, but absolutely engineering had such a core role to play in terms of, let's talk about what's feasible, let's talk about what's possible, let's come up with different ideas together and brainstorm. That's not just design's role at Dovetail, it's all of the product team.
My next question is about like a same topic, more on the prototyping aspect. So usually we designers, we make prototypes in Figma and we test them so we can define those outputs because they're all defined by us. And AI is kind of shifting that interaction that people have with technology. Usually the traditional way is a designer comes in, defines all the different flows, scenarios, use cases. So it's very, predetermined. And AI has like probabilistic and unpredictable outputs. So my question to you is, did you have any tactics that you use to design for unpredictability?
Oh, I love this question. So I would break this down into what I would call helpful unpredictability and unhelpful unpredictability. And to kind of frame that in terms I think everyone can understand, I'm going to talk about tossing a coin as an example. So this is an example of unpredictability outside of tech, and one that we'd all be familiar with. And helpful unpredictability for this action is gaining an unknown result, whether you're going to get heads or tails. And that's going to help you, make decisions, or however you're using tossing the coin. What is unhelpful unpredictability here is anything that can get in the way of you getting the result that you need to achieve your goal. So an unhelpful, unpredictable element here might be, humans might not toss a coin standardized. So someone might toss a coin and the coin rolls under the couch and you can't read the result. And that's unhelpful. Or, you might get, in very rare cases, it might land on its side and you don't get either heads or tails. And that's unhelpful. So when I think about designing for AI, yes, we do have some elements of unpredictability. And some of those are helpful and some of those are unhelpful. And so the process for me about designing it is figuring out what are the unhelpful elements of unpredictability and how can you manage them through parameters. And there are some natural parameters. So if you think about the coin toss example, you're not going to toss a coin and come up with the answer duck. That's not a possible list of responses. You have natural parameters there that are limiting you to, if you're getting a response, it's either heads or tails. And the same thing with AI. So with, for example, our summarization feature, we're not going to ask the AI to summarize a transcript and it return a picture of a duck. It's going to return text. So that's the parameter that's naturally baked into the system. And so then we can look at what is a good experience and then figure out how to take as many of what would be unhelpful unpredictability and turn that into parameters that we can restrict the results on. So for example, summarization, that might be, we have determined that it's easier to read short paragraphs broken out by chapters versus, really long text or dot points. That's what we've determined is going to be the easiest way for you to read that information. So what is helpful unpredictability is that we don't know exactly what that text is going to look like, but we can add in these parameters that restrict us to reduce that unhelpful unpredictability so that we can focus more on what's going to be helpful and useful for you as a user. And so a lot of that is kind of designing what is going to be a good experience. And then there is a lot of trying to figure out how it can break. And that, we do a lot of testing. We have blitz sessions where we try to generate as much unhelpful unpredictability as possible, creatively as a team, figuring out different ways that users might interact with it, and then figure out, okay, out of those elements, how can we establish more parameters to restrict the likelihood of getting an unpredictable response.
When you talk about those parameters, I'm assuming there's some prompting happening behind the scenes. So how much was the design team involved in that, or was that more of the engineering team doing that? Was it more of a collaboration? Can you talk a bit more about setting and testing those parameters and tweaking them until you have just the right thing that you're confident to launch?
Yeah, I'll be the first person to say that I am not an expert prompt engineer. And I think that's a good place to be as a designer, because we can't expect our users to be either. So I think the first principle that we have there is try to reduce the amount of prompting that our users need to do. And obviously there's an element of always going to need some of that. If you're interacting with Ask Dovetail and you are asking questions, that is, you are setting up the prompts there to a certain extent. But how much can we reduce the cognitive load on the user and the responsibility to do that well and put that more on us? So I think that's the first principle. Secondly, I would say definitely the engineering team is there working on the exact prompts. It was a partnership in that we would work together on what is a good output. So we'd be able to sort of say, what should this look like, or this isn't a good example, or this needs tweaking. And then our engineering team works on making sure that we can guide it towards what is going to be a helpful response.
I think I have an unpopular opinion that I hate prompt engineering, especially when people put empty text boxes in front of users, expecting them to do whatever they want. And I remember this when ChatGPT first came out. I was showing this to someone in my family, and I was like, okay, you can type whatever you want in this and it's going to answer. And they were like, okay, but what do I write exactly? I don't know. And I think this is where the interesting design challenge comes in for very specialized tools. You can eliminate the prompt engineering by just designing a very specific interface for that task that wouldn't require it. You should do it in the background. I agree with you. We shouldn't rely on people to keep learning new prompting techniques or testing different things until they get what they need. Yeah, like the onus should be on the tool and on the system behind it, not on the person. Because otherwise it's frustrating. You just have to do homework before you're able to use an application.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think this is something I say often, not just in the context of prompting or AI, but every decision we make, a user make, is an abdication of our responsibility to design something well for them. And that can be, in regards to unnecessary system flexibility. If you let the user choose, do you want it A, B, C, D, or E? We've sort of abdicated the mental load of making that choice for what's going to be the outcome to the user, instead of saying, okay, we've done the work and we've determined that A is going to be the best option for you. So I say that quite a lot, and I think that same thing applies with prompting, because like I'm not very good at it. So how can we expect all our users to be really good with it when they don't work with it all the time? And it's so unpredictable, and it's definitely something. So the evolution of our magic highlighting feature really played into this, because we started off with, we had a system that worked. We had a good prompt in the background that would come up with good moments of interest, but we allowed users to enter their own custom prompts if they wanted to find something specific. And talking with our magic team, we found that the results were consistently so much better for our baseline prompt than when users had uploaded to custom prompt, because users are not prompt engineers, and so don't necessarily give the details required in order to get the responses that they're looking for. And so in our new iteration, when we made this work with tags, we tried to think, okay, how can we remove prompting? So tags is something that the user has set up that are points of interest that they know how to work with. It's not writing a prompt, it's just writing a tag, and that's something that people are pretty familiar with. How can we use that context that they have in order to find moments of interest that are important to them, rather than requiring them to write a custom prompt? And so that it's been really intentional choice, as you say, to remove the requirement for these open text boxes and prompts to go in, because it's hard, and it is like an expectation on the user to be able to figure out what to do and how to get a good result from it, versus can we use something that they've already configured. And there's all kinds of ways that we're sort of working on trying to improve the quality of that for them as well, but can we sort of take that responsibility and that mental load rather than abdicating it to the user?
So you said you're not a prompt engineer, but do you feel like you had to learn new things as a designer to be able to design with AI in mind?
I think the biggest one for me, and this is underpinning the fact of AI, is that you are taking away some control from the user. And obviously we've designed with as much control for the user in mind for our solutions, but you are removing some control for the user in that AI is doing work that the user would have done. And for that to be successful requires so much trust and transparency in the results. And so I think the core difference between, and obviously I think approaching any problems you should approach with your design fundamentals, which are, AI agnostic. But the core difference for me is really needing to go deep into what is trust and how can you design for trust and transparency. But because the requirements for that with AI are so much higher than the other features that we've been building in previous iterations of Dovetail. And I think what that looked like for me is not reinventing the wheel. So there are products and services out there that convey trust in different ways. And so for me to upskill in that area, I kind of had my own little curriculum of investigating products and services that convey trust, and how did they do that? And what patterns that could we take that were familiar and use that in our own systems, so that you're not coming up with something that feels unfamiliar, but we're learning about what people find trustworthy and using that in our designs. And I think one example that I find so interesting about this, and how trust is kind of something that is you don't need to reinvent the wheel for, is the example of one thing that I looked at and thought about was, okay, what is trustworthy but shouldn't be? And one of those examples is, the first one that came to my mind is Wikipedia. So there is a lot of trust in Wikipedia, but the reason it shouldn't really be trustworthy. I mean, there's a reason why, no expert that's guiding it. It's kind of held in place and made trustworthy by the community behind it. So what does that look like, and how has that been made trustworthy? And diving into that. And then you follow those threads, and then something that's so interesting that comes out of that is that some of the ways that they convey trust relies on referencing that predates the internet. That was that were used in books before the internet was even conceptualized. And so you kind of see these patterns of trust that are conveyed throughout different incarnations of technology. And I think that was really fascinating for me. And one area that I really dove deep in to try and understand how to design well with AI was how to design for trust and how we can leverage existing patterns for trust so that it feels familiar for our users.
I was definitely not expecting Wikipedia as the example, but now that you mention it, it makes so much sense because yeah, anyone could write it, but if there's a reference that backs it up, yeah, I trust it. So was there like anything specific? Like, I guess you mentioned like the referencing and the citation. So was that something that was directly transferable to what you designed with the new Dovetail 3.0 features? Like, is there an equivalent of that if I go in?
Yeah, we've pulled citations. So that's something that if you search a magic search, you get a summary of data from all throughout your Insights Hub. And we have used citations directly like Wikipedia used to provide those little numbers at the end of the sentences that you can click on and have a look and deep dive and sort of follow that thread and find the evidence yourself. And so it's really interesting, like, you know, everything's old is new again.
Yeah.
It didn't really need new designs. We had those examples of what makes something trustworthy, and it's being able to follow those threads and being able to confirm. And then after a while, you do generate that trust in the system and you don't feel the need as much to follow the threads. And, you know, when was the last time you fact-checked Wikipedia? You probably just trust it.
People are very familiar with like hallucinations now, so I think that also solves that. Some of the trust issues people have with AI, like, is this made up? Like, we've seen so many stories of people just getting, you know, false facts and like made up facts from AI because it's not really built to generate the truth. It's just built to generate text. There's no like fact-checking mechanism, but the citation is a great add-on.
It's we also looked at other systems for trust that I kind of delved into is there's sort of different ways. One is that one of it, and the Wikipedia example, is trust from the community. So a set of the community keeps it honest, and you do have the citations. There's also trust from experts, and trust from experts is you have, you know, for example, on Instagram, you might have the little official check, and you can kind of look at it and be like, oh, that's been, you know, this is an official account. That engenders a certain amount of trust because that person is sort of deemed an expert in their field. And or has kind of that credibility given to them. And so we kind of have these different ways of, okay, so another way of transferring trust is transparency and where this has come from. And so we use, you know, avatars to show when it's been generated by Magic or AI. And you can kind of have that linking to who made this. And it's not just, you know, the objects are either linked to AI or if someone makes it manually, it's linked to them as well. So again, you can follow the threads of where did this come from? And so that's like another model that you can kind of follow, not just the citations, but just the transparency of attribution, who made this. And the more that you see trustworthy results from the same place, the more that you can kind of tie that to trust to that individual.
Do you have any advice for other UX designers who might be in a situation where someone more senior, or like, you know, someone very high up is, you know, seeing all this AI hype happening and is telling them, but just add AI somewhere in our product? Like how should designers specifically respond to those requests or that pressure that might be put on them?
It's a tough one. And I think one of the strengths of a designer is in the ability to ask questions. So approach with curiosity. So when you have that pressure from a stakeholder, you know, we need to add AI in, follow it up with a question. Don't follow it up necessarily with, no, that's not the right approach. Ask them, what's driving this? What are you hoping to achieve with this? Why is this important to you? And then start to ask follow-up questions. What customer problems are you hoping to solve with it? And kind of tease that out a little bit as well. People like to feel heard. So make sure you understand the reasons that you're getting that pressure first and approach with curiosity, and then start to focus on, okay, let's focus on what customer problems we can solve. And you can kind of start to say, let's look at opportunities with AI. It might not be, you know, we don't need it. It could be like, okay, cool, let's keep a curious mind and look for opportunities where we can solve existing problems, but keep bringing back the focus to problems, keep asking questions, keep being curious. And then I think that'll help open doors for conversations to kind of bring that back to the customer problem that you're trying to solve.
And use Dovetail to bring up any problems that customers have and share the highlight reel with them.
Absolutely. Use any customer data that you have. And if you have a tool like Dovetail that helps you centralize and report out, that's definitely helpful in order to be able to pull focus on what goals And I think a good question to ask, and one that I like to focus on in my design work as well, is, are you solving a true customer problem, or are you solving a circular problem? And a circular problem is one that exists only in the context of your own ecosystem. So if it's only language used in the context of your own product or service, and customers aren't talking about that problem external to that, you're probably not solving a real customer problem that they're going to want to pay money for, or they're going to want to look for a service to solve. And so that can be a little trick as well. So if you are only talking about solving a problem or putting in AI in the context of your own ecosystem, you're only using language that exists in the context of your own product and service, sort of push your stakeholders to think about what problem are you solving that's external to that product and service, because that's going to be the driver that's going to bring people in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the classic design advice. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution.
Exactly.
I learned a lot from the past hour, to be honest, so I want to thank you. But just to end it on a lighthearted note, I have some rapid fire questions, so just answer with one word or like a few words. You don't need to explain anything. I'm going to ask you and then you just answer.
Cool.
Okay, so what industry do you think will most benefit from AI?
Anything that deals with lots of data.
Okay. Something you love about AI?
The ability to solve problems that humans aren't very good at.
Something you hate about AI?
Deepfakes.
+1, yes. Is there any AI tool you can't live without anymore and you can't say Dovetail?
Dovetail. Other than Dovetail, Perplexity.
Perplexity, okay, that's a good one. Dream job in an alternate universe?
Wildlife photographer.
Okay, I mean, you're in Australia, so I think that would be a very cool job, which is a good transition to my next question. What's your favorite Australian food or snack?
Tim Tams, but I did have Vegemite toast this morning, so I'm basically a walking Australian cliche.
And best place to visit in Australia?
Ningaloo Reef. It's quieter than Great Barrier Reef, and you can also swim with whale sharks.
And just to end it, where can people find you and contact you if they have questions or just want to talk to you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I am super happy and excited to connect with people if you want to talk about design or AI or anything Dovetail.
Thank you, Sarah. It was amazing talking to you.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, head to year2049.com and subscribe to the weekly newsletter. I'll be interviewing more people and sharing more practical insights to help you discover and understand how AI can solve meaningful problems in your life, work, or business. See you soon.